All right, cool. We're live. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes and let a couple other people jump on, and then we'll get started. Tonight is all about smoking. If you've been following the journey the last few days, you'll get to see some epic conclusions and a live on TV, see it when I see it conclusion. I have my lovely assistant tonight, Sarah, who will be helping out with all of the random stuff, I'm sure. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump on there and ask. Comments, concerns. We have a couple of other things to announce, and drink.
Cheers.
Cheers. I'm finishing the first one and going to move to the second, and then I'll be perfect for talking smoking class. Perfect. I'm still working on the Wi-Fi thing for my Flame Boss, unfortunately. Still not connecting. I'm sure it's my fault in some form or fashion, but as soon as I get that connected and I'm able to share that information, then I will definitely share that information with you guys. I just haven't got it connected yet.
Hey, Chef, I hear you have an awesome client named Joe Ketterman.
Yeah, he's famous, Joe. Joe Ketterman has been super supportive. We thank you very much, Joe. I think you've seen all of the episodes so far and been very supportive in supporting the team. So thank you very, very much, Joe. And thank you to the many, many others who have also tipped me so that I can support the staff. And we'll be calling out some other people during the class as well. So yes, Joe, thank you for being a great client for so long and coming to all the classes at both locations. And thank you for sharing, breaking bread with me and sharing in a little craft beer. So hopefully I say something tonight you haven't already heard me say, and I can teach you a little something. If not, just put in the comments something, then maybe you can teach me something. All right. Sure, there's some law against drinking on TV, but they'll just pull my video like they did yesterday. I'm not really sure why they did. I'm sure I broke some rule, but I don't know what rule I broke. So thank you to those who have jumped around a little bit to find my broken links and then eventually find a correct link. We got a little bit. We can uncover some goodies here. Got a little bit of cooked. Got a little bit of raw. Not the same cut or the same animal. Wonder if anybody can identify this. Can anybody identify this before I tell them what it is? I mean, it's not complicated. It's just kind of crammed in there and covered. It might not be a great view. So if you know what that is, let me know. I'll give you 2 points. Completely random. Okay. I think we're going to get started. We're a few minutes in, right? All right. We're going to jump in. Thank you, everybody, for who has joined me. Second beer. Cheers.
You drinking my Guinness?
I'm drinking whatever that is. So, thank you. It's smoking class. And we're going to cover a few different things tonight. First and foremost, you guys have probably noticed different kind of settings. Things are happening. We're moving around a little bit. We are in our backyard tonight, literally. I have a little bit of a uniform change. Of course, Visit Indie shirt. This is one of my favorite shirts. I've had this for a minute. I love the texture, and it's just a really comfortable shirt. I know they have a fundraiser going on, so you can purchase their shirts if you go to their website and help support a lot of the hospitality force that has obviously been put out of work. And I think they're going to give me a shout out as well in their email. So thank you, Visit Indie. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate your support through all of this and all your support before, and look forward to all of your support after all of this. So all of that kind of work. We're If you don't know who we are and what we do, hey, I'm Chef JJ. Hey, everybody, if you haven't figured that out yet. And normally we are a chef-driven, food-forward retail store. We feature kamado-style grills. We specifically sell the Big Green Egg and everything that goes around that. And my company started as a personal chef, so I've always been in people's homes and educating them about how to cook and how to cook on the grill and how to basically stay home and cook. And we're all in that similar situation now, so it's time to take advantage of that and make the most of the situation that we're in. So as we pivot a little bit, this time last week, my entire workforce was put on unemployment because of the situation, and I know lots of people are doing lots of different things to help. And my one thing that I can do is work and do some digital videos to help support the team. So I'm doing a series of digital videos. They're going to cover lots of different topics. If you have any questions, we can interact and I can answer those questions. But hopefully I provide a little bit of information, a little bit of value, maybe a little bit of entertainment, and it has a little bit, it's worth something to you, and you're going to give me a little tip at the end so we can help support my team. The Venmo account is at Chef JJ's, and
The link
our
is
website,
in the comments.
and the link is in the comments. So we're going to jump right in. What you see nearest you is pastrami, and that's something we started over a week ago at this point. Pastrami is corned beef that's been smoked, and we did a video last night, or we did a video 2 nights ago about pulling it out of the corning solution and then putting the traditional pastrami rub on that. That's another specific recipe that I think is in the links or in the comments as well, or will be shared in the links in the comments. But you need to start with the corned beef, which is going to be in another link in our other video, so check that out. Also, if you're not a subscriber, be sure and subscribe and tell your friends about it. And then this is a piece of pork loin. If anybody guessed, it's pork loin. It's not the whole loin, obviously. It's probably half or a third of a pork loin, but we're going to talk about that as well. I have a few different smoking woods, a few different rubs to play with, and then I also have the duck that we rubbed a couple days ago as well, so we can kind of talk about those different comparisons. And the other thing I have are some beef ribs and some of that duck going on the grill. So I'm not going to go deep into specifics about how to set up the grill for smoke and all of that because we just did a video of that on last night. We set that up for the pastrami, and it went, I think I put that on around 6:30 last night, and it went till 8, 9 o'clock this morning. So 14 hours or so, 15 hours. We pulled it at 185 degrees, and then I just let it rest. I have no idea what that looks like, so at the end of the show, we're going to slice into that and see what that looks like. Ideally, because we've cured it properly, it's all kind of broken down, and all that fat's broken down, and it has a really nice pink color. And that's going to be a combination from the curing salt and also the smoking wood that we use, the oak, and then I used a little bit of cherry, but that's just me. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more smoking woods as well. So that's going to be the pastrami. The pork loin. All right, so let's play a little bit of pork loin. Let's talk about a much shorter kind of curing time, cooking time. And that's going to be a pork loin or a Boston butt or something like that. So this is just the raw pork loin. It's been cut in half, and we want to clean it up a little bit. So I'm just going to cut off this extra fat because it really does not contribute to the final product. And this is going to give me a really good. This is a really good lesson in kind of all of this preservation method, and will apply to all the different proteins. So we're going to brine this pork loin, and brining this pork loin is a really good method to keep extra moisture in and to set the proteins up so that when you do expose them to smoke, that they break down properly. So I've cut off the extra kind of fat cap there, and then this is the silver skin. So I'm going to trim off this silver skin because we don't really need it anyway. And then there's a few different options you can do with pork loin. Clearly, you can just cook the whole pork loin If you wanted to brine this whole thing and smoke it and put a rub on it and smoke it all, you could. And then after that, you could do lots of different things. Pork loin is a thing that you could smoke it to 165 degrees internal temperature, and then slice it and cook it a lot like, cook it for pork chops. Or you can smoke it all the way to 195 degrees, and it would actually shred. If you plan on cooking it that long and using it as part of carnitas or pulled pork, something like that, leave the fat on, because you're going to need that extra fat, because once we've trimmed this fat off, there really isn't a ton of fat going on. But I know that I'm going to use this for pork chops. So I'm going to prepare this knowing that I'm going to be breaking it down a little bit, and I'm not really going to be relying on all that extra fat cap. All right, so this is the pork loin, and we're going to brine it. So brining is a really, really simple saltwater solution. So it's equal parts, and you're going to find, I don't know, you can probably find a couple thousand different types of brining recipes on the interweb. But for us, in-house, in the recipes that we use equal parts of sugar and salt. Now we use lots of different variations of that sugar and salt. 99% of the time we're using kosher salt, and then the other time the sugar part is also just another slash word for sweetener. So you could use white sugar, brown sugar, sugar in the raw, you could use maple syrup, any sort of sweetener to offset that saltiness. And generally they're going to be about equal amounts. Now, once we have that salt and sugar mixture of equal amounts, then we usually go about 6 times that to water. So if I have half a cup of sugar and a half a cup of salt, that equals 1 cup. Then I'm going to get 6 cups of water, and I'm going to combine that. And that's going to be my basic brining solution. Now, you can add a bazillion different layers on top of that if you want to, but don't have to. Because I want to taste the flavor of the pork, and I want to taste the rub we're using, we're not going to do a bunch of different aromatics. But you could put in pickling spice, you could put in any sort of dried herbs, you could put in edible flowers. I mean, really anything that has any sort of natural oils to it that are going to go into that solution. So we're going to use a little bit of Red Eye Express. I'm just putting a little bit in this just to give us a touch of flavor. But at the end of the day, this is going to be applied during the smoking. So it has the water, salt, sugar, and then just a little bit of Red Eye Express. Now, the math on brining. We brine 1 hour per pound. So this is a 4-pound piece of pork loin. So math-wise, we would brine this for 4 hours, which is pretty reasonable. I know I want to make pork chops, and I'm got to make dinner sooner than later. So if I cut this in half, now I have 2 2-pound pieces. Now my brining time is 2 hours. One hour. These are each 1-pound pieces of pork loin. And then a nice 8-ounce boneless pork chop is going to be about 30 minutes. So we'll cut these into half-pound pieces. We'll put that in the brining solution. And we'll let it sit there. Ideally, you're going to put it under refrigeration, nice cold water, 1 hour per pound. So we're going to be about half-hour brining here because we put them into chops. And that's going to be your brining, setting something up for smoke. If you were doing a large piece of meat, like a turkey, yeah, that might be a 17, 18-hour, 24-hour brine. This method would work for ribs. This method works for whole muscle. This is a brine. This is a wet brine. We're going to talk about dry brine or cure, which we did on Monday's episode, and we'll go back to and circle back to. And then we'll talk about the dry rub as well. So that's going to be your brine. That's our pork chops. We're going to let those sit for a half hour, and we'll come back to them. All right. So comparatively speaking, was the rub. So you got some different terms going on here. We got brine, which we just talked about. And that's a wet brine specifically, so that's your water, salt, sugar. And then you have a dry brine, which is taking salt and sugar and applying it to a piece of meat for at least a couple of days, 24 hours minimum. And we did that on Monday. We actually did a wet brine or a ham cure, a variation of a pastrami recipe. So we took a pastrami recipe, a corned beef recipe, a little bit of that curing salt, and we put some beef ribs in it for just a couple of days. And then we also took another set of beef ribs and we did a dry brine or a dry rub. So a pre-purchased dry rub is going to have some sort of combination of salt and sugar in it, and then it's going to have other spices going on. And what those spices do, or what that salt and sugar does to the protein, is it helps break it down, helps tenderize, but it also helps accept smoke. So when you do introduce the smoke, it cooks properly. So that's what we did with this middle duck breast here. We did a dry brine. We seasoned it liberally with both sides, and there you have it. It's firmed up a little bit. Usually stuff firms up a little bit when you dry brine it because it's actually pulled moisture out. It's pulled liquid out. So it tends to feel a little more firm. And then I left the meat on top of the duck skin on top of the breast meat. So that's that. So, and I put that in the smoker, and we're going to compare it to a cured duck breast, which is I removed the skin, and I actually took copious amounts of salt and sugar, equal amounts of salt and sugar, whatever additional spice. We used a Chinese spice, a Peking blend, and then just packed it in there like a cast, and pulled it out of that cast, and you can actually see the difference, how much smaller it is, how much drier looking it is, and how much firmer it feels. And that's because just those huge amounts of salt and sugar have pulled out that moisture and then also cured it at the same time. And I put that on the smoker. And then I've also, the skin that I removed, same thing, packed it in that cast, put that in the smoker as well. And we'll just get to kind of compare the differences, see what happens there. So we have some brined pork. You could do that with shrimp, pork, chicken, duck. You can do it in a hams type method with beef. So any of those types of methods work great with that. So now we're going to talk about some beef ribs. So I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. As soon as I get my Wi-Fi enabled thermometer to be Wi-Fi enabled, I'll be able to share the information and share the temperatures with you so you can see these cooking scales, these graphing lines of how the meat cooks properly. So right now the pit's running about 210 degrees, and we're using right now we're using a combination of peach and cherry. And really, there is no rule about smoking woods. Some people have their preferences as far as bitterness or how strong the flavor is. Generally speaking, a fruit wood is going to be a little bit sweeter in flavor versus a hardwood is going to be a little bit more bitter in flavor. And I don't mean bitter in a negative way. Maybe the right term might be pungent. But either way, it's that's going to be your oak, your post oak, your red oak, hickory, those woods that are very strong in flavor and can stand up to red meat and lots of salt and lots of spice. So everyone has their preference. My preference is cherry wood. I really love cherry. I think it's really versatile. I think it's pungent enough to stand up to some types of red meats. And it's a really nice adder, so we'll blend different woods just to come up with different flavors. When I first started smoking and playing around with different smoking woods and graphing and documenting the flavors, I would purchase a pork tenderloin, which are the much smaller ones. Some people refer to them as catfish tails, but it's pork tenderloin. They only weigh about a pound, pound and a half. And I would smoke one each day with a different type of wood and chart what kind of smoke ring it left and the flavor profile and all of that. And after probably the fourth or fifth day, my wife was like, "Yeah, it just all tastes like smoke. It's just the same. Like, it smells different. Yes, the yard smells great and different every day, but when I taste it, it just tastes the same." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't think so. I think this one's sweeter, and I think this one's..." So everyone's going to kind of have their own take on their smoking wood. So there isn't really a wrong answer. But generally speaking, fruit woods are going to be lighter flavored, lighter meats. Harder woods, heavier flavors, heavier meats, heavier spices. So, and then the other completely non-scientific method, I don't know why this works, but it does work for us, is that we use chunks only. We use competition smoking wood, so this stuff has been cured, not dried, which means it still has the natural oils and sugar in the wood, and we don't have to soak it in water before we put it on the coals. We will use one piece per hour, or we will use one piece for every hour of smoke that we want. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, gosh, don't you want to smoke it the whole time? Well, yes, you're smoking it the whole time, but once the surface of that meat, whatever you're smoking, reaches about 135, 140, it's done accepting smoke, and that's what produces the smoke ring, because once the smoke stops going in, it's no longer coloring that meat and having that chemical reaction. And that, if you're going really low, 210 degrees, that's going to take about 5 hours. So the most you would ever really need is probably 5 chunks of wood. So I would put 5 to 6 chunks of wood in at the same time, and that gives me about 5 hours of burn. If I only wanted to smoke for an hour, I would put just one chunk of wood in. Maybe I was just smoking some duck breast, or I was smoking a side of salmon, or something smaller, a pork tenderloin, something smaller, and didn't need to mess with a bunch of smoking wood. So that's our take on smoking woods. Of course, we have those in our store when you can come in and grab them. And then Fruta Woods are our guys. I'm not actually sure if they have an online store, if they're wholesale only, competition only, but we get it from Fruta Woods. So,
Chef, if someone contacts you and wants to pick up some smoking woods, is that available?
Yeah, absolutely. We can set up, pick up at the store, appointment. We're doing that with our wine club members and other people who need some charcoal and stuff like that. So it's pretty easy to set that up for us, and we can set it up curbside even, so you can swing by and we can bring it out to you. So just shoot us an email, and we can get that all organized real easily. So yes, thank you for asking. And we do have charcoal, we have smoking woods, we have the rubs as well, and any other supplies you might need.
One of our other employees is making an appearance.
Oh yeah? Which one?
Tilly.
Tilly Klievek, another killer. Look it up. Google the name. Tilly Klievek. So I have 2 employees. They have not been laid off.
No.
They are cats. They are feral cats. I named them after women serial killers, because they're both girls. So they're named after women serial killers. Tilly Klievek and Marianne Cotton are the protectors of the Boston Homestead Farm, and they keep all the critters away and bring us lots of presents. So we appreciate their work every day.
Tilly had a squirrel trapped on the roof today.
Very nice. Those squirrels can be pesky. All right. I totally digressed. I don't even know what I was talking about. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, we were talking about pickup and in-store and all that. So thank you. I appreciate that question. For sure. All right. So let's talk beef ribs. So we did some beef ribs, plate ribs, beef short ribs. Those are all the same thing, just different names. And we treated them 2 different ways. And you can see this video that we posted on Monday. One, we put into the same type of cure you would put a brisket for a corned beef. It's called our ham rib recipe, and that link might be shared. If it's not, it's in one of our other videos, but it's called ham ribs. Of course, it's on our website. Every recipe we're talking about is on our website, and you can go to the recipes and type it in search thing. So they're called ham ribs. So we did a rack of ham ribs, and then we also did a rack of the dry rubbed, dry brine ribs cooked them at the exact same time, and we're getting ready to check it out. So what I'm doing is I am cooking to temperature. Because they're a large enough rib, I can put a probe in, and because I've given it a cure, I want it to go to about 185. 185 is going to ensure most of my fat's broken down, and I have a pretty good texture. So, technique, timing on this, indirect heat. We're using a combination of cherry and peach, and we're going 225 degrees. I put these ribs on when I pulled the brisket off this morning. So these ribs have gone most of the day, and then the last couple hours, you can throw on a sauce if you want. So we did that with one of them. We did that with the dry rub, kind of traditional barbecue one, because that's kind of how they're supposed to cook, or how we think they should cook. And then the other ham ribs, we pulled out of the solution. We just seasoned them with some Holy Cow Meat Church rub, and put them on there. So no extra sauce or anything like that. You guys are going to love this. So you guys are going to check out this reveal at the same time I do. Yeah. So this guy, sometimes these beef ribs can get really fatty. Yeah, let's check it out. Let's do it. We're going to get that up close and personal. Ooh, I don't know. Shadow's horrible. Maybe. Is that better? I don't know. So we'll see. Anyway, there's a couple things I'm going to do here while she's keeping that camera there. I'm going to unhook the probes. Because I want to leave these probes in this meat. I don't want to pull these probes out right now because the meat is sealed around them. And if I pull them out right now, a bunch of juice is going to come flowing out, and I don't want that juice to come flowing out. So I'm going to leave the probes in, and I'm just going to disconnect them from the readout so I can move them. I'm just going to put them on my platter. I'll bring this around to show you guys real quick. Okay. Oop, I lost a bone. That guy's already pulled away. Here I have the cured duck breast, the skin going already, and I'll let you know that those have been on for a little over an hour. Okay. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe you can't see any of that. Alright, great. So, kind of look the same. They weren't the exact same size when we started, so I'm not going to compare as far as breakdown. But they both broke down pretty much the same as far as cook. I'll be interested to see the color when we cut them open. That'll be fun to see. I'm assuming anytime you use any of the pink curing salt, it's always going to turn your meat a little pink because it's a pink curing salt. So we'll see what effect it has on this beef for just a couple of days versus also the pastrami that's was in it's actually corned beef, so it sat in that solution for a week, and then we pulled it out and put a pastrami rub, which that pastrami rub, you guys, if you haven't seen that link already, it's mostly black pepper and coriander, and then there's a little bit of onion and garlic and a little bit of sugar, but there's no salt in that paprika in that pastrami recipe because, well, that corned beef has had plenty of salt. So we pulled that out. We're going to let it rest. I need... There we go. No. There we go. So I'm not going to do a foil tent because that's bad science, but I'm going to use a little bit of foil. So if you guys have ever used a foil tent because you want your meat to rest, you got half the equation correct. You know that you need to let your meat rest before you start slicing into it, otherwise all the juices that are going crazy are going to just flow out of the meat and you're going to end up with dry meat. So what you do is you take your foil and you cover the plate so that it rests and stays warm. The problem with this The problem with this, if I was to totally cover that plate and encapsulate it, all that warm beef would be putting off heat. That heat would be hitting this foil, which is relatively cold, and then that heat hitting the cold foil would form condensation. And then our plate would have a bunch of liquid in the bottom of it, and that's not what we want. So I'm just going to use this foil so I don't mess up my resting blanket or my linen. So I can cover these ribs without getting everything dirty. Put my resting blanket on it, which is an insulated blanket. And now the heat that rises can actually pass through. It's not trapped, but we can still maintain warmth. We're not going to get condensation. So all those juices can relax, and then when it's time to slice into that meat or shred it or do whatever we're going to do, it's a good way to take care of it. Obviously, if you're going to be using anything with food contact, stay away from using this stuff with any sort of fabric softeners, because then your food will taste like downy, and you don't want that. So use like all natural, keep it clean, and then no fabric softeners at all. So it shouldn't have any sort of odor at all. All right. Ooh, hey.
Do you want to give some shout outs?
I would, thank you. So,
Macaulay's.
oh, I love the Macaulays. You guys are great. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you coming to all of our events. Linda and Charlie, it's not really the Macaulays, it's McGuire and Macaulay, but, you know, McGuire gets caught up with that smart girl often. So, thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate you. They've been coming to classes since I opened the backyard Broad Ripple location in '09. So I often joke that they've probably been to more classes than I have at this point. They're season ticket holders, so thank you guys very much for supporting the team. We really appreciate you very much and look forward to seeing you again.
Do we sell resting blankets?
We do sell resting blankets. Great question. Thank you for asking. I'm sure if you sent us an email and asked for one, we would be able to figure out that transaction right now. I'm sure I would mail it to you at a pretty cheap rate, too, because that's easy to do. And so we'll figure it out. Yeah, I mean, we got some delivery options. You know, we'll make it happen. We're a small business, so we're pretty open to making any of this work. Again, our goal for all of this is that hopefully I can provide you with a little bit of information and a little bit of entertainment that has a little bit of value to you that you can then proceed to exchange with a tip that helps support our team. All 100% of any tips I receive goes to supporting the team and helping them during this time. So we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Those of you who have been to Chef JJ's and know my team know that they are second to none, and know that they fully encompass the core values that are Chef JJ's, and they really represent, you know, when I'm sitting around in my living room many years ago with my wife thinking about how to run your business and thinking, well, at some point you're going to need other people who see this vision. You're, you know, 20 years later, you're very blessed to have a group of people who encompass that, and we really appreciate that, and I really appreciate that. So I'm doing everything I can right now to help them, and you know, whatever we can do. So thank you guys again. So we'll let those rest a second. We got to check this out. I want to pull the duck a couple of ways. It's been on for about an hour and a half, so it should be done, and we'll be able to compare it. So we have the skin, and then we have the fully cured breast, and then we have the dry rub with the skin and the breast on it. So move this back. And we'll get back to that. We'll get some reveals here in a little bit. And we'll check this out. So I'm not going to let this rest just because of timing, and this is just kind of a fun experiment. So I just want to slice this and just kind of see, ooh, wow, see how juicy that was? I don't know if you guys caught that on camera, but it just literally, juice literally just jumped out of the top. So while it looks really firm and kind of feels kind of hard, it's actually really, really moist. Woo! And that's hot. I'm going to show you up close with that smoke ring. Now, woo! Got a nice smoke ring. Now be sure and rinse this, otherwise it's going to be really salty. So be sure and rinse the skin and rinse the breast meat, otherwise it's going to be really salty. So you'll need to rinse it off first, get off all that excess salt and all that. And then you can... So the great thing about that method is it's gonna be more intense. Now you're gonna get more of that meat of the flavor, but at this point, unless you're getting duck breast from like your friend who goes hunting behind the dumpster, it shouldn't be gamey. So, and then some of the skin. So if this actually comes to a fully cooling, it'll be crispy when it fully cools. So you can slice it while it's still warm. And then you could use this as, seasoning on top of a healthy salad. That's how I would use it. Or put it into some scrambled eggs, or anything of that nature.
Or if you're on a keto diet.
Or if you're on a keto diet. I don't even know what that means, but I'm sure keto, that applies, right? And then this is the dry rubbed one. So you can definitely see the difference. And then we'll slice this up. So in this particular instance, the fat being with the meat helps retain a lot of the water content, so it doesn't necessarily get as firm and as dry. And I'll show you a picture of that close up. And this is pretty interesting as well, because you'll notice, because of the, I don't even know if you can see this in the light, but because of the fat, the meat side absorbed the smoke ring, but the fat side absorbed none of the smoke. So some people will eat that fat. Some people will cut it off and not eat it. But once it's cooked, it peels away very easily. I'll try this. So this is the one. I did rinse it off. I rinsed off all the salt, all the extra. Just let the flavor. Tender, delicious. Hour and a half cook time. If you're going for a specific temperature, if you wanted to put a probe into that breast meat, you're going to smoke it to 140 degrees, 145 degrees. You're going to treat it like you do pork. So, beautiful, nice, and tender. So, that's exactly what we're going for. Well, that worked. Now I hope the other two things worked. All right, here we go.
Hey, what can gift cards be used for? And do you have a special going on right now?
Awesome. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. So, yeah, we're doing gift cards. Anything we can do to help support Chef JJ, support the team, obviously. So we have a special on gift cards, $300 gift cards, $300 worth of gift cards for $250. So we'll give you 3 $100 gift cards. Maybe you give them to your friends as gifts. Maybe you use them to enter, as thank yous for clients, whatever. And you'll only be charged $250. Those gift cards can be used towards anything. So they never expire, they never devalue. So they can be used towards the purchase of a grill or purchase towards tickets to a class when we get going and all that good stuff. All right. Oh, and of course, retail items. So if you do have a gift card, you can go online. You can check out our items. If you don't see what you want, you can always send us an email. And then we can always take your gift card information over the phone. So super easy to use, no problems at all. All right, so I've let this meat rest a little bit. I don't know if I'd let it rest long enough, but we'll see. They're not huge chunks. Check out the temperature here. Sorry, I need that. and we'll see what the temperatures are reading. So they're always going to go up a little bit. When you pull it off, you used to have some residual heat and things going on. So I pulled them off about 185. They usually go up to about 190, 191, and then they'll drop back down again. This one's, plugged into the wrong one. Nice. That's 187, so it's actually kind of where we want it. I don't actually know which probe goes to what. That's 184, so we'll see what's going on there. It might have dropped that quickly. But let's check it out. All right. Here's the reveal on the beef ribs. There is a style or a method when it comes to smoking that we haven't talked about, and that is the Texas crutch. So when you are smoking anything, brisket or ribs or pork butt or whatever, you don't have to keep it exposed or open the entire time. If you feel like, okay, it's been 5 hours, it's already accepted all the smoke it's going to get, I want to get the thing done, or I want to keep it from drying out, you can do what's called a Texas crutch. I didn't come up with a name, that's just what it is. And what it is you take aluminum foil, maybe you add a little bit of juice or butter or beer, any sort of liquid, to that aluminum foil along with the protein, and you wrap it very, very tightly. So the key to that is, if you wrap this in aluminum foil, you do the Texas crutch, you want to make sure no liquid is going to escape out of that aluminum foil. Essentially what you're doing is you're kind of steaming it, and you're kind of breaking it down that last 10%. And that's where you get that kind of tender, fall off the bone, baby back, I want those are kind of esteemed. So if you Texas crutch them too long, and the bone actually pulls away from the meat and is actually steamed, in some barbecue competitions, that'll actually get you disqualified. So you want to be a little bit careful how you use the Texas crutch. But it's a really useful tool because it can control your texture. It can also control your timing. A lot of people who try to do slow cook or long smoking are trying to, and I don't know what reason this is for, but they're basically trying to figure out how they can pull this piece of meat off at the exact perfect timing that their clients or their guests arrive, or it's dinner time the next day or whatever it is. And that you don't have to do that. You can, if anyone's ever had any sort of leftover smoked meat or leftover barbecue, it's always a little better the day after, because that smoke has had time to kind of intensify and those flavors have had time to redistribute. So it's okay to do your stuff ahead of time, a day ahead of time, half a day ahead of time, and then simply reheat it for service. So, for instance, this pastrami, this was done this morning. We let it rest. If I wanted to serve this tonight for dinner, it'd be as simple as just heating it up and serving it. I'm sorry there's not a more sexy reveal. I mean, I guess the short ribs are a sexy reveal, and those are what we're having for dinner. So, but even then, these might not be exactly perfect. I might want to cook them a little longer. You're still kind of could be varied by a half hour or an hour, and that's not what you want to do if you have specific dinner plans. So let's check out the beef short ribs. All right, these are a good sign that you've done things okay is that a bunch of juice doesn't come running out afterwards, so that's a good sign. Bone already came off, so that's a good sign. Pull this off. All right, so I'm going to slice just one of these off so we can do a side-by-side. All right. This is going to be crazy, you guys. This back here. Get this guy. Can already feel a difference, that's for sure. And then I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but there is a difference. So there is a smoke line. There is a smoke ring on this guy. It's probably an 1/8 inch around, and it's not horrible. But then you look at this guy, and that's like a 1/4 inch smoke ring all the way around, and that's partially because of that pink curing salt and that rub. So those are going to be a little bit different. So, I'll tell you a quick barbecue secret. If you're ever in a barbecue competition, just throw a touch. I mean, talking like a 1/4 teaspoon of pink curing salt into your rub, and you'll get that funky color going on. All right.
Hey, Chef, Chris Carpenter says that the knife you're using is making quick work of the meat. Do you prefer a brand or a style of knife over another?
So everyone has their thing on knives. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the comment or the question. So these are Henckels. These particular knives are actually, this one specifically, is one of the very first knives that was ever given to me when I was probably like 17, 18 years old. So this is a really, really old knife, and it's really high quality. So if you want knives to last a really long time, get a really high quality knife. If you don't care about knives and you just use them as a utility, and if it gets dull or rusty and you want to buy another one, then just spend money on a cheap knife and sharpen it. But a really good knife, does you well. But it only does you well if it's sharp. So the most dangerous tool in a kitchen is a dull knife. And the reason for that is because I want this knife to go exactly where I'm pointing. I want it to cut whatever is underneath it. And I don't want it to suddenly go somewhere. And if it's not sharp, it might go into that meat, and then it might try to go somewhere where it's not supposed to go, which is usually into your finger that you're trying to hold the meat steady. So a nice sharp knife, you don't have to go crazy, but if you want to, we could geek out about knives. I prefer Henckels just because I have small hands, and they fit my hand really well. So this is a newer model, has a little bit more rounded handle. So either one of these work great for me. So I'm just going to cut these off the bone really quickly, and get you guys a side-by-side different, or just pull that off. So that comes off the bone a little bit, but there's still a layer of kind of fat on that bottom that I want to cut off. And then as far as breaking down, I can see that the dry brine one still has some fat. I could probably still cook these or Texas crutch them or trim them up if I wanted to.
What does Texas crutch mean?
We talked about that. That's wrapping it in foil. Oh, that's right. You were inside drinking. But we talked about the Texas crutch. That's not a comment, is it?
Refreshing.
I'm sorry, refreshing. Yes, you were refreshing. So, that's the dry rub beef. And so what happens with that curing salt is it just kind of speeds everything up a little bit. So if I was to leave that rub on, or for maybe a couple more days, it might do the same thing. But you can see the smoke ring. Show you guys this. Just that, maybe. I don't know if that's a good picture at all. But the smoke ring is crazy different. Alright. Hope the kids don't mind that I'm manhandling all their dinner tonight. So, they don't care. They're teenagers. You're right. It's crazy how much food they consume. Alright. Now for the pastrami. So this guy's had a long journey. If you've watched all my videos, all 3 of them, since Monday, leading up to this, thank you. I appreciate that. Here is the reveal of the pastrami. So 7-day cure in a corning liquid, which is corned beef. And then if you take corned beef and you boil it, that's corned beef. Or you put it into a crock pot or any sort of liquid, that's corned beef. If you take that corned beef, that raw cured brisket, and you smoke it with a rub of coriander and pepper and some other spices, that is pastrami. Pastrami. Don't drink too much and try to say pastrami. Otherwise, it's pastrami. And then people make fun of you.
Who makes fun of Chef JJ?
All right, fine. Time for some pastrami. Okay. Here we go. Oh, crap. So before I cut into this, I just want to say that brisket is my least favorite cut of meat. Did you just give me the lobster claws? Don't give me the lobster claws. The reason why it's my least favorite cut of meat is because you can do the exact same thing twice in a row and get two totally different results. And it's all determined on the two muscles here. The brisket are two separate muscles. They're a flat, which is like a flat piece of muscle that wraps around the rib cage of the cow, and then the point, which is essentially the pectoral muscle. And they cook at different rates, and the fat goes in different directions, or the grain goes in different directions. And if that cow walked a lot, the brisket muscle is going to be more stiff, and it's not going to cook up as versus a cow that maybe didn't walk as much. So
That sounds like a lot of complaining to me.
it's not complaining. I'm just saying in the barbecue smoking world, brisket is one of those things you can do the same thing twice and get two different results. So here we go. Brisket. Pastrami. Ideally, I'm looking for a good crust, which that happened. I have a really nice crust. I'm really happy with that. And I'm looking for some color. And it should be even, it should be way more pink than this is. This was in that kind of corning liquid for a couple of days. This was in for 7 days. So let's see what happens. Yay! So it's all pink. So that's exactly what we're going for. I love it when a plan comes together. It's almost like I've done this before. So here you go, if you get closer. I don't know, the lighting isn't super awesome, but that is totally pink. At least it's totally pink here. I don't know if it's totally pink on your computer, but it's totally pink. It looks great. The fat has rendered beautifully, so this is the top fat cap. I could, look at that. I can take this crust and basically peel it off here. And you're not going to get it all off. That's where you're going to get a little bit of that pepper from. But then it just completely comes apart.
Our other employee has been making appearances.
Marianne, has she? Here. So this was with, this is traditional. This was with oak. Oh, I threw in a little cherry. That's right. A little oak cherry.
Holy macaroni, you guys, that is delicious.
You got it? All right, awesome. So, then what I'll do is I'll just peel the fat off of this brisket. All these spices and flavorings have gone into the meat. I'm not going to get it all off, so we'll get some mixed in. Then once that fat's peeled off, we'll use that pastrami for sandwiches. We're going to make some hash with it as well. So we'll do lots of good things with this. Originally probably about 11-pound brisket. It weighs about 6 pounds now, 7 pounds. And then once we take all this fat off, we'll have probably 5 pounds of usable meat. So you're going to get about 50% loss on briskets. But well worth it, especially if they're if you can find them laying around. They seem to be kind of the last piece. So that kind of wraps it up. I think we've covered lots of different topics. And covered it all. If you guys have any questions at all, please go in the comments. You can send us emails, whatever you want. Feel free. We're here to help. We're here to help you come up with ideas to use up some stuff that's either in your pantry or your freezer, and help you cook some delicious food. Again, thank you guys very much for all your support. If you got anything out of this and you want to leave a tip, go to our Venmo account at Chef JJ's. And we really appreciate all of your guys' support. Thank you very, very much. And we will see you. Oh, wait, we're doing an event on Saturday. That's right. So our next live grilling event is Saturday at 3 p.m. It's going to be family style cooking. So I'm actually going to put together a whole meal live. We'll share the recipes ahead of time. So tomorrow, the next day, we'll get those recipes under the link that's already scheduled. We'll get the recipes out. And You can either cook along with me or just check it out and watch it. But we're going to be playing around we're going to do some burgers and maybe some side dishes and some either casseroles, macaroni and cheese, some stuff like that. So check us out Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And if the weather's not super awesome, we're getting rained on, maybe we'll be at the downtown location. So we'll see how that goes. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you supporting my team while we go through all this. And anything and everything goes directly to them. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate you.
Last shout out.
Is this a trick question?
No. Last shout out to Millie, who is Corey Wright's sheepdog.
Hi, Millie.
Millie is watching you right now.
Nice. Millie likes me.
Corey Wright is a football friend.
Yes.
And he's also a farmer and a lawyer.
Yeah, he's got some stuff going on.
And he's been a very generous donator
Well,
to the Chef JJ's family. But especially Millie.
Yes.
So Millie now likes Chef JJ and Wendy Williams.
Wow. Awesome. Well, I'm happy I could...
So you're Wendy Williams famous.
Yes, I'm Wendy Williams famous.
To Millie.
I better look that up. To Millie. So thank you, Corey, and thank you, Millie, and really appreciate your support. And we will look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday.
Kisses.
Kisses. Be well, everybody.